Hello there, my friends. I'm Lightblade, and welcome to our Cataclysm narrative recap. I've decided to do recaps like this for my Cataclysm Let's Play because it gives my audience who may not understand the game as well as some others a chance to catch up, and also because it gives my roommate a chance to show off some of his art. I'll be putting a link to his work in the description. Please feel free to let him know what you think. Additionally, it adds just a bit of a narrative touch to the game, and I'd say that's always a bit of fun, wouldn't you? Well, friends, it's time we get to it, wouldn't you think? This, my friends, is Jimmy Gerhart, our dear friend and a survivor of the Cataclysm. A reclusive sort, Jimmy grew up in the backwoods of Asphodel County, uneducated and rough. Jimmy never even learned how to read, instead dedicating himself to more practical arts like hunting, fishing, and the best way to set a rabbit trap. These skills served him well in his early life, and after his parents passed away, kept him from having to spend too much time near civilization. Fine by him. Jimmy never much liked people anyway. They made fun of him, and they shunned him for his looks, and he preferred to avoid them whenever possible. When the Cataclysm came, Jimmy had come to town for only one reason, to get his favorite knife replaced at the local sporting goods store. He didn't have much money, but it had been enough, and he'd picked up a particularly nice replacement when the evacuation call went out. Ushered into a shelter by an overzealous police officer, then left alone while the cop went to find more survivors. Jimmy didn't spend long hidden away. A cursory check around the shelter showed there wasn't much there, so he set off out into the woods, where almost immediately he stepped right into a bear trap that he had been trying to disarm. With a nasty cut along his leg, Jimmy set off into the woods, racing through them and avoiding the strange, odd webs he saw covering the trees. He'd never seen webs that big, and he wasn't going anywhere near them. The occasional glimpse of multi-legged things in the trees didn't exactly change his mind any. Knowing there was another small town nearby, Jimmy set off in that general direction, not necessarily intending to go into town exactly, but thinking maybe it'd be safer than the first one. He didn't still know exactly what was going on, but when he found a nice cave, he didn't even question all the dead bats before deciding it might be a safe place to hole up. But he'd need supplies. Well, that meant going into town. And going into town was not something he really wanted to do. But he didn't have a choice. He didn't get very far before he was beset by something he'd never even thought possible, though. People, but different. Changed. They came at him, groaning and clawing, and he barely even thought twice before he started fighting back. The first few went down easy. He took the chance to check around inside the house, finding a few supplies and deciding something somewhere must have gone very, very wrong for the entire family to come at him like that. It was like they were animals. It was only a few hours of careful searching later when Jimmy found himself somehow surrounded by the same sorts of twisted, changed people as before. He'd gotten just a little careless, and some of them must have hurt him. He was caught like a rat in a trap. He knew he'd have to fight, and oh, fight he did. Knife in hand, Jimmy laid into the monsters, barely even noticing one of them transformed into something even more twisted and horrible right before his eyes. Even the hiss of acid on the grass didn't stop him as he laid into them one by one, cutting them into pieces, and then cutting up the pieces that they wouldn't stop wriggling around just to be sure. He hadn't even been hurt in the fight. He was feeling 10 feet tall and bulletproof by now. Unfortunately for Jimmy, his confidence just wasn't enough. Along the way, he met a horrific beast, huge and bulky, something that looked strong enough to muscle pickup trucks around without even breaking a sweat. Jimmy turned to run, but the growing sound of thudding legs behind him told him it could run faster than he could. He dropped his backpack, dropped his coat, prepared himself for a fight. A minute later, it was over. Huge arms like tree trunks smashed into Jimmy again and again. The first blow shattering his rib cage, the second pulping internal organs, the third tearing him in half. Jimmy's life was over only scant hours after the end of the world. Alone, unknown, and unmourned, our friend Jimmy is no more. But while the end may have come for Jimmy, it has not come for Cataclysm or for Lightblade. Rest assured, dear friends, there will be other survivors out there, others waiting to explore the world after the end. And we will be meeting them, dear friends, oh yes. One by one we will meet them, and we will hear their stories as well. In the meantime, my friends, remember the name Jimmy Gerhart, whose life was cut so swiftly short, and may your world, unlike his, not come to an end. Good night.